topic is the annotated bibliography that also includes the process paper. If you recall, there are 300 summative points for this project, this NHD project for second semester. But that is actually made up two different point groups. The project itself, if it's a website, an exhibit board, a documentary, etc., that's worth 200 points. The other 100 points comes from what is referred to as the process paper and annotated bibliography. And so that's worth 100 points, which gives us that total. And because I am the person who grades every single one of these papers that are turned in, your process paper and your annotated bibliography, I want to go through with you what your expectations are, what the rules, what exactly it is that you are going to be doing for this 100 points, because I expect a perfect paper from everyone. Using noodle tools, even though it may seem like a pain at times, it is actually going to help you get the 100 points that you will nail as part of this NHD project. So the process paper and annotated bibliography actually has 3 parts to it. The first part is the title page, and everybody, no matter what type of project you're going to do, is going to have a title page, and I will provide you with an example in a few minutes. And everyone's title page will look basically the same, with, just making it unique to your project. The middle part, or the second part, is the process paper, and the process paper is actually 4 paragraphs. 4 paragraphs, each paragraph answering a specific question in regard to how you did your project. And then the last part of it is the annotated bibliography. And with Noodle Tools, this becomes pretty much the click of a button on this portion of it, as the Noodle Tools program will actually create your annotated bibliography for it as you are putting in the information for your sources and then later the annotations. Now, there is an exception to this. If you are doing a historical paper, you also will be completing a title page like everyone else. But instead of those 4 paragraphs that we refer to as the process paper, that's where you will put your historical paper. And the historical paper, of course, is an introduction with the thesis, your body paragraphs, your conclusion, and then last, your annotated bibliography. So if you're doing a historical paper, you will not be doing those 4 paragraphs, but rather that's where your project goes. But everybody else will be completing then this process paper with the annotated bibliography and the title page. So let's talk about rules real quickly. This is done in 12-point font. You can use Times New Roman, Laura, or Cambria. So those are the 3 choices that you have, but it must be in 12-point. It has to be written in Chicago style. Now, we really don't need to worry about this, because when everybody set up the Noodle Tools, they set it up using Chicago style, and so Noodle Tools is going to do that for you. Now, if you're doing a historical paper, you will be writing it in Chicago style, and if you have any questions about how that looks, please get with us so that we can make sure that it is done appropriately. Pages are numbered consecutively, except the title page is not paginated, meaning that there is no number on the title page. And so page 2 then is the first page after the title page. The annotated bibliography is also paged with this, so you'll go right from that process paper, those paragraphs, onto the annotated bibliography. And we will show you exactly how to do this as we get closer to that deadline. You use 1-inch margins, and the pages, when you're all finished with all 3 parts of this, will be stapled together, and you will make 2 copies for that deadline on January 28th and 29th. So if you're turning in the rough draft for the website and historical papers, those are due a little bit earlier that week. But one copy stays with your project and one copy comes to me because I will be grading the rough drafts and then all of the final copies of this. So I do them all, which makes it fair in terms of grading. One do not do that we always have to address is that this is not a kind of project that requires some kind of fancy report cover. So even though that might be fun at times, do not make or use a report cover for this. The title page is your cover sheet. All right, so let's take a look at this title page because it has very specific rules. And again, everyone's is going to look exactly the same except with the unique information for your project. It is stapled to the front. There's nothing on the back of the title page, so it is intentionally left blank. You start with the title of your project, then the name or names of the creators. This is not MLA, so your teacher's name does not appear on this anywhere. We are in what is referred to in NHD as the senior division. So NHD as a national competition has two divisions. Seniors are senior high, which is 9 through 12, and then junior high, which is 6, 7, and 8. When we are in the competition, whether it's regional, state, or at the national level, there are two divisions of competition. So all the junior high students compete against each other, and we at the senior high then compete with other 9th through 12th grades. So you only put senior division there. You do identify then if your project is individual and group, and then the type of project. So it will be an individual website, a group documentary, a group performance, an individual exhibit. You have a choice, individual or group, and then the type of project. On the front then of this title page, you will put the count of the student created words on your project. And then last but not least, the word count of the process paper, because the process paper has a limit to the number of words that you can use. So this is what a sample process paper looks like. You'll notice that all the different parts on the previous slide are here. It's about 1/3 of the page down, and really this is kind of an eyeball for you. And then about 1/3 of the page up is where you find that other information. The title stands alone, as you see here. And so for my example, I always use my old favorite, the Battle of St. Louis. And then about 1/3 of the way down, so if you're looking at this from the title, you space down or tab down, and there you put the creators. So these are the names of the people who worked on this project. Now, if you are by yourself, there's only one name there. If there is more than two of you, you have the first person with a comma, the second person with a comma, and the word and then the last person, just like you see here. After that, you put senior division, because we are in grades 9 through 12. And then you put the type of project, whether it's individual or group, and then the type of project. So remember, you have individual website, documentary exhibit performance, group website, documentary exhibit performance. And then, of course, if you're doing historical paper, you would put historical paper. There are the student created word count, as you see here, and how many words that you used in your project. And then last but not least is the process paper word count. There is a limit on how many words you can use in the process paper. The limit is 500. So you can have 499, you can have 480, but you cannot go over 500. So take a look at this real quick. Notice 1/3 of the way down, 1/3 of the way up, about 1/3 then in between the title and then this information at the bottom. It is very specific, and your title page should look exactly like this. The second part then is the process paper. And again, if you're doing a historical paper, you do not have to do these 4 paragraphs. Everybody else, though, will be answering these 4 paragraphs. The process paper is basically to show how you created your project. And it is attached then after the title page in front of the annotated bibliography. It is required for if you are doing an exhibit, a website, a documentary, and a performance. If you are doing a historical paper, remember, this is not something that you have to do. This is where your paper goes in this grouping. So there are 4 questions that you have to ask or answer, and each question then is 1 paragraph. This is 4 paragraphs. Each paragraph answers one of the 4 questions in this order. Question number 1 is, how did you choose your topic? So, how did you choose it? Was it because of some kind of family connection? Was it because you had interest? You had learned about it previously? What was it that made you choose what you did for your project? Question number 2, how did you conduct your research? This, of course, will be unique to everybody's project. Maybe you did an internet search. Maybe you read a book. Maybe you conducted an interview by phone. Again, it's however you answer in regard to your research. Question number 3, why did we choose our category and how did we create our project? This means, why did you choose a website over a documentary? Or why did you choose an exhibit board rather than a historical paper? This could be, of course, because of your own interests, maybe because of your skill level, you know how to use technology. Maybe it was because of the topic in that time period had plenty of video and audio that you wanted to present in that similar manner. And question number 4, how does your topic relate to the theme? Remember, that was one of the initial things you had to do, was to take your topic and connect it to communication and history. So you have to explain in this last paragraph then how whatever your topic is relates to the theme of communication and history. There is that 500 words maximum. So you will have to do a word count for these 4 paragraphs and make sure that it falls under that 500 word limit. You may use first person as you answer the questions. That's why I think this is one of the easier parts of this, and why 100 points should be a given for everyone. You just say, we chose our topic, or I conducted my research, we decided to do an exhibit board, and you can use those first person pronouns in order to answer these questions. So again, this is 4 paragraphs that answer the 4 questions in this order. Page 2 then, the page numbers for this start with page 2 on the first page of the process paper. And unlike the title sheet, which is blank on that back side, these are front to back. So as you type in the answers to these 4 paragraphs, they go from page 2, maybe to page 3. It goes front to back from here on out. Now, the last part, and the part that we use or create with Noodle Tools, is the annotated bibliography. And the annotated bibliography is a little bit different from a bibliography. Each of the sources each of the sources that you have will have an annotation. An annotation basically means a note about how you use this source. Now, the good news is, again, that Noodle Tools will create it into the correct Chicago style. They do have an hanging indent, but Noodle Tools, that web program, will take care of all of that stuff for you.
In order for Noodle Tools to be able to help you with the primary secondary step, after you've added your sources, and look at my couple here, over here where it says tag, you want to add tag, and depending on what type of source it is, this is a secondary source, and so see you got SSP there, and then over here under sort, if I sort it by primary and secondary, now I've got that. When I go to export it, it will be set up primary, secondary.
These sources have to be separated into those two categories. Remember, you have to have primary and secondary sources. So primary, firsthand knowledge, and secondary sources, things that have been interpreted maybe by somebody else or through another lens, etc. And so you will start with primary sources as they're listed alphabetically, and then go into the secondary sources alphabetically. So each of the categories will be alphabetized separately. So primary sources stay with primary sources and secondary sources stay with secondary sources. The annotated part then is the interesting part because you're making a citation or a note about how you use that source. And if you looked on Noodle Tools, when you create a source, it actually gives you a box in order to type your annotation. And so a good annotation has these three things to it. So again, it's the three questions. So if you recall, you had 4 questions for the process paper, and in an annotation, you have 3 questions that you have to answer. So the first thing is to identify the source. So what type of source is it? Now, I'm not talking about primary and secondary. You need to be more specific. Is it a song, a poem, a book, a website, an interview, etc.? And then how was the source used? What exactly did you get from this source? Did you get information about the topic, about the context and history? Did it help you with your thesis? Was it background information? Be specific for each of your sources. And then the third thing is, how did the source help you understand your topic and create your project? Roughly, these 3 questions are 1 to 2 sentences. For example, you could very easily say something like, this was a song that gave us more information about our primary source or our topic, and we were able to use it in our documentary or website. Or you could say something like, this was a picture that we used on our exhibit board to help set some of the background information about our topic. So again, 1 to 2 sentences for each of your sources. Those 3 components then make up a good annotation. So the grades for this are those 100 points, and I'm going to share with you by Google Classroom then the rubric that I use. It's basically a checklist, and it's something that helps make this easy for me, although please don't tell the other teachers because they think that I am a martyr for doing this for everybody. But it's basically yes or no. Is your title page 1/3 or your title 1/3 down the page on your title page? Are your page numbers paginated? Is there nothing on the back side of the title page, etc.? And I go through a checklist pretty quickly and say yes or no, it is or it isn't. This, of course, helps to make sure that everybody's graded correctly or consistently, especially since we have people from different classes, different teachers working together. So that way, my students aren't graded hard compared to somebody else's students. So there is a draft deadline and a final deadline. You will be given that you do have your draft deadline. And then from there, I will grade your process paper and annotated bibliography and get it back to you. And when you get it back, you can either keep the grade that you get, or you have an opportunity to fix the mistakes and get a 100%, all of your points. You can revise it as many times as you want, as long as you get it back to me by that final deadline. So if you are planning to go to the competition, the regional competition, which will be held at the University of Missouri St. Louis by virtual this year, everybody will be sending a perfect paper because that really helps you in the competition stand out from the rest, because your paper will shine and they will know that you have done your job and mean business here. It really gives us as a school, our students, a leg up in the competition. So there is one thing I do have to remind you about, and that, of course, is plagiarism. Remember, all of your work here needs to be original, to the point that whatever you use from another source has to be cited. So everything that you use has to have credit where it has been taken from. And that's why the annotated bibliography is important, because anything you use is fine as long as you give credit to who it belongs to. So those deadlines, if you are doing a paper and a website, your deadline for the rough draft is a little earlier in the week, because your registration deadline for competition is at the end of the week. And I need to see that rough draft before you register. Because once you register for the competition, if you're doing a paper and a website, your stuff is locked. You cannot make any changes to it. And so that's the reason why you guys have a different deadline, so that I can go through them, and then you have an opportunity to fix anything that needs to be fixed. If you are doing a performance, an exhibit, or a documentary, your deadline is at the end of the week, January 28th or 29th, because your deadline for competition is a little later. So that gives me an opportunity to work with the paper and websites before everybody else turns their stuff in. Now, if you don't turn in a rough draft on those days, then you basically have one shot at this. So it is to your benefit to turn in that rough draft, so that I have an opportunity to go through it, get it back to you in the order in which they're submitted. And then the final deadline, meaning the last day that I will take a process paper and annotated bibliography for a grade, is February 19th. Now, it'll take me after February 19th a couple weeks to get it all done. But this is not something that we're going to collect. You are going to bring it to me, one paper copy to me, in room 141. So between January 29th and February 19th, if you have something for me to grade, you need to bring it to my room. I'm in the downstairs red hall at the end of the hall. Well, just as a quick reminder, if you are doing a documentary, you will have the title page, the process paper, the annotated bib, and the process paper word count. If you are doing an exhibit, you are going to have all 5 components here. If you are doing a paper, you will have the title page, the annotated bibliography, and the project word count. If you are doing a performance, you have the first 4. And if you are doing a website, you have all 5 of these as part of your annotated bibliography and process paper. So at this point, I want you to think if you have any questions that you need me to answer. And if we don't get to them in class, you can always send me an email. And if you have questions about the process paper or annotated bibliography, send them to me or ask me, because again, I am the person who grades all of these. And you want to make sure that you get the correct information from the person who's going to be handing you that grade. So if you have any questions, let's stop and think about what they are, and we'll take some time to answer them. In the meantime, what you should be doing for the rest of this class period then is to have Noodle Tools open and to be doing that research, continue that research so that you get those primary and secondary sources that you need, that you, of course, create them for each of those sources, a note card with the information, and you link the two together so that you can start putting all the information together to support that thesis.